And this hangout on air is live. Awesome. Well,
Ooh.
welcome everybody
Hi.
to the Standing Up During Teen Domestic Violence Prevention Month, a conversation with youth activists. I am Eleanor Davis. I work at Futures Without Violence, and I work on the That's Not Cool program, which is a teen dating violence prevention initiative. On this side, thank you. And so we are today talking with three awesome young people. I will let them introduce themselves in a moment. But they all attended the recent That's Not Cool Summit that we put together. I'm just going to let them go ahead and take it away with introductions.
Okay,
Okay.
cool.
I think we
Awesome.
should do it by order. So I think Fatima, you should go first.
Thank you. Okay, so I guess I'll just start out with a basic question that I have for both of you.
Oh no,
Wait,
we're doing an
or
introduction,
we're doing
right?
introduction. Sorry.
Yes.
Excuse me.
Don't jump the gun.
Yes, I guess I'm excited. So, I
Yeah.
guess my introduction. So, my name's Fatima Tall. I'm a youth activist and organizer from Boise, Idaho. I live in Caldwell, which is like 40 minutes out of Boise, but it's the same thing when you live in Idaho. But yeah, I'm 18, and I have been doing social justice work for about 4 years now, which is really important to me, and I found it through my mediums of like slam poetry and also writing, which I really loved. And so I've been doing this for a while. And for me specifically, I have gone into the work of social justice just because I feel like there are so many people out there who have a voice, especially young people. And in this movement right now, I feel like we have been shut out because of our inexperience or because of our age. And there's a lot of people who don't think we have that power, which we do. And we wield this power through our voices, which I think is really great. But yeah, that's basically just all about me. Want to know anything else, just let me know. But
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. Jed, I think you're still mute. Hold on. Okay.
Yeah, I muted myself so that I wouldn't, because it goes to whoever's like king. So I
Yeah.
just there's a lot of noise in the background, so I muted myself.
Hmm.
Do you
Oh,
want to
okay.
go next, Jock?
Okay, sure. Yeah, my name is Jacques Akbobli. I just turned 18 a couple of weeks ago, so woo. I am I use he, his, him pronouns, and I am a youth leader and youth activist at the Illinois Caucus for Adolescent Health here in Chicago, Illinois. And sort of what we do at, or it's abbreviated ICA. And what we do at ICA is we partner up with adult allies to sort of fight for change, and we tackle issues from identity, sexual health, and right now we're doing a birth justice sort of work in sort of work. And what we're doing is that we're trying to repeal PNA, which is the parental notification of abortion, but we can get into that later. And the reason why I'm an activist, I think that when a lot of people ask me this question, the answers change and vary on what day it is, I guess. But today, I guess the reason why I am an activist sort of for moments like this. I feel that like any moment that I can inspire someone or I can sort of create change is an uplifting moment for me. I moved to America from Togo, Africa, and sort of moving here was hard for me. I experienced a lot of bullying and I experienced a lot of hardships while trying to assimilate into the American culture. And I think that the reason why I'm an activist is so that I can sort of fight all those issues that I dealt with while I was trying to assimilate into this culture. And it wasn't a very easy move, and I don't think that it is for a lot of people, that many immigrants that come here. And I think just sort of the whole process of me figuring out myself and finding myself, and I think that it was sort of me being at the right place at the right time. And I've been doing this work for about 6 to 7 years now. And so, I mean, that's a little bit about me. Yes.
All right. So can y'all hear me?
Yes. Hmm.
All right. I'm Jed Rodriguez. I work at Lyric. We're a nonprofit in the Castro here in San Francisco. We're a service provider for queer and trans youth. I'm a program assistant here, so I help facilitate the internships we do for queer and trans youth in the community. We focus on youth empowerment and youth leadership, particularly in the queer and trans community, but we also serve, straight identified people as well. Why am I an activist? I think I'm an activist because I have to be. I'm queer and I'm trans and I'm a Latino person. So there's just a lot of daily battles that I have, right? And I think just me existing as I am, I think that's an act of resistance. And I'm an activist because I think before I started working at Lyric, before I started being around queer and trans people of color, I was very ashamed of my identities. And they were identities that I felt held me back, right? I was like, I'm not going to be happy because I'm queer, because I'm trans, because I'm brown, and so I won't be able to be as happy as cis straight white people, right? And so I'm an activist because I know there's other kids that I work with that also feel that way, feel the way that I felt. And so I'm out here trying to put in work so that, nobody that way.
Yes.
That's awesome. So I want to just jump in with this first question. You all have talked a little bit about why you're activists, and I'm wondering also if you could talk a little bit about what activism looks like to you, or what it feels like to you, or what it means to you in a more general sense, around more like the actions that you take and how you identify as an activist, I think.
Yes. Should we go back in the order that we started in, like Fatima? I think we should answer questions like that, like, from like Fatima, just to keep it, the flow going. Yeah.
And I'm just gonna ask: does anybody mind if I like get up and walk somewhere? Because I'm gonna go home. Go to a home base.
No, you're good.
Like walk and talk. Okay. Hopefully you can still understand me, which I think you should. It shouldn't be that bad. Okay, so the question was what I feel about youth activism, right? Or why, or how I feel about it, correct?
Or what does it mean to you, I think?
What does it mean to you? Okay. Well, I feel like youth activism to me, it holds a kind of power, basically. So when we're young and we're young people, we don't have a lot of power. Thank you. Yeah, when we're young people, we don't have a lot of power, and it can feel kind of overwhelming living in a world that we feel like we can't control. And that comes in with like a culture of domination and all that great stuff. But like overall, youth activism gives us this power that is unreal, because we're not only changing ourselves, but we're changing a community and other young people, which I think is really important too. So for me, it's just creating a space that
Hello. Did she freeze?
She might have frozen. So I think maybe Jacques, if you could jump in right where she left off.
Yes. I mean, sort of going off of what Fatima was saying, I agree with what she was saying. But for me personally, I think that being an what an activist being an activist, what does that mean to me? I think that it means that I can sort of take control and sort of take action in my own community, and to sort of start creating those changes that I would like to see, and that I like to see that are needed in my community and in the world. And I think that like I said before, I became an activist because because of my experience with issues that I dealt with when I first moved to America. And I think that what does that look like to me? I think a lot of people believe that, a lot of people think that when you're an activist, you have to sort of like, do this an activism involves you, like, requires you to do sort of this great big gesture that's going to change the world in some greater way. But I think that a lot with change, we don't expect change to just happen overnight. I think change happens gradually, and I think that's sort of what being an activist, that's what it involves. That's what it looks like. I think that being an activist, you sort of work your way up to those changes. It's not necessarily like, oh, it happens overnight. And I think an activist's job is to sort of wait out the the pros and cons and just staying there and staying focused and definitely just, having an end goal, or maybe you don't have an end goal, and that's still okay. And definitely just sort of letting your passion for change drive the cause.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That activism, it's not about this grand gesture, right? And I think people think activism, and they think you have to go out and protest, or you have to go. That like there's these very specific things that people associate with activism. But I think for me, what activism means to me, it means consistently challenging the way you think, right? Consistently challenging your own actions and your own prejudices. I think because yeah, and so activism, I think for me, I don't know, it's really the little things. It's like showing up for your family and your friends, right? Being there to support them, being a good person, being kind to everyone. I think the biggest step you can take towards changing the world is really just changing your world. And so modeling the behavior that you want to see in your wider community, I think that's like the biggest step of activism that you could take, right? Is like being the change you want to be in the world, which is like kind of a cheesy quote, but I think it's really real. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, I mean, I agree with, I think the word activism also has it comes with many, meanings. And I think that, while an activist is someone who goes out and protests and do all of these great things in the world, an activist is also someone who just, wants to see change. If you want change in your community and you're doing any step of action that you're doing to sort of create that change or sort of influence change in their community, that's just, I feel like that automatically makes you an activist. There's no sort of particular definition to what you do that makes you an activist. There's no like checkbox where you have to check like, hey, I did the protesting, check. I changed the law, check. That's not sort of like, an activist is your own definition of what an activist, what it means to you. And I think, yeah. So I mean, it's an interpersonal quality in yourself that you value and that you hold dear to yourself. Yeah.
I think that a lot of the time that young people get confused with activist and organizer, and they think that they either have to just be one, or they have to be or they can't be both at the same time, which you can be. But I think a lot of the time that people think so much that they have to be organizers and that they have to be organizing something to make them actually making that change, when it's basically you educating yourself on like issues going on in your community is activism. That's activism work, because you're trying to fix the problems that are in our communities, and you trying to relearn what you've been taught over these years, that's activism, because you're trying to rechange everything everybody's told you about the way the life goes, or way we function as people. Because over the years we've been taught things that we feel to be true, but they're not, just because of who set them up at the beginning. If that makes sense, like gender roles, or even like a thinking of domination. Yeah.
Definitely, that does make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really real. Educating yourself, because then you can bring that education to your community, right? I think, yeah, which I think is so important. And I think a lot of the times, me and my friends, we have conversations, about race, about gender. And a lot of the times we feel like those conversations aren't enough. We're like, okay, there are all these problems, but what are we going to do? But actually, I think those conversations are a really great place to start.
Yeah, that is activism.
Exactly. I think educating yourself and creating that wider dialogue with your community and with other young people is definitely activism.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think also, the first part of activism is the word active. So any sort of active stance that you take against an issue that you that you're passionate about it's already enough. You don't necessarily have to go out and do some greater thing. It's just, by just you saying, hey, this is wrong, someone should fix that, or I can fix that, or like, we all should fix this. I think that's already enough. So yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yes. Yes.
So. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna just ask Eleanor if you have any how I mean the question here also is sort of what the reason why we're here today to talk about teen dating abuse and how does what you do relate to teen dating abuse in your specified specific organizations or your specific lifestyle or whatever you do in your life that how does it relate to teen dating abuse?
I think that that's a really good point. I think that we at That's Not Cool and Futures, I've said this to you all before, but we
Mhm.
really believe that all of these isms that you all are fighting and all of
Mhm.
the different activism that you all have spoken to, we believe that all of that is violence prevention.
Mhm.
That we believe
Mhm.
that all of that work is preventing violence towards communities, within communities. And all of them are so intersectional. Like dating violence plays a role in so many different communities and so many different people's lives. And so the work that you all do, though it's sort of specified, also touches on the world of teen dating abuse, either a lot or a little. Um, so it
Mhm.
might be interesting to hear. I think it's kind of noteworthy that today is February 29th, which is a leap year.
Mhm.
So it's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's kind of, we got this one extra day of February, which is Teen Dating Violence Prevention Month.
Mhm.
So yeah, it'd be cool to hear you all talk a little bit about how you think your um, work overlaps or touches on the issue of teen dating abuse.
Yeah,
Mhm.
totally.
Okay. I'm going to. Should I start? I'm going to start.
Go ahead.
I think that specifically what we do is we work specifically what we do is we hold workshops around the city of Chicago. Talking and in these workshops we're talking to specifically youth audiences, and we're talking to them about we're teaching them about sexual health. We're teaching them about their bodies, their identities, because that are sort of motto and our like sort of message that we believe that teens especially need the correct information about our bodies, our minds, and what we're going through, and the only way to communicate that is through teens themselves. And I think the big work that ICA does is um, that we have a lot of youth activists and youth leaders, and we sort of, and at ICA we are taught sort of workshop materials and we're taught all these stuff about sexual health and identities, and we sort of bring that back into our respective communities. And I think how that should relate to teen dating abuse, in our workshop, what we do is we try to especially in our sexual health workshop, what we try to do is we try to approach it in a we try to approach it in sort of in a way where we are, um, you know, discussing where we were trying to let our audience know that there is sort of no shame in what our history, where we come from, and what each individual has to offer to the workshop, and we approach it, and it's very youth led, first of all. And I think that also the issue about teen dating abuse is that it's not talked about enough. That's the problem. We hear all the time about, abuse in relationships and all that. And I think it's mostly just adults getting, it's usually, adults that are being talked about. And I think that teen dating violence, relationship violence, with teens are usually overlooked because why? Teens can't make decisions. The perception is that teens or youth can't make decisions for themselves, and that they can't possibly be in love, so they can't possibly be dealing with violence or any of sort of the real problems that you face with dating someone. And I think that at ICA, what we do is we definitely make it so that it is one, first and foremost, all opinions matter, and especially the opinions of teenagers and opinions of the youth. And right now, what we're doing is that um, what our mission, what we're doing right now is we're trying to obstruct or try to get rid of the PNA, which is a parental notification of abortion here. I mean, that's because that law is sort of put in place by adults who believe that teens don't have the rights, or the teen don't have the mindset to make decisions for themselves. And the thing is that no matter sort of what your views are on abortion, I think that it's sort of like it should be left up to the person first and foremost to make that. For my at ICA, we believe that the person who is pregnant should be the person making the decision for themselves, and because that also can lead to complications with that maybe that person is facing abuse and we don't really know about that. And I think that that's sort of how we deal with that. We deal with it on this sort of like way where we are where we are approaching it in a way that's like everyone's opinion matters, everyone's history and background, where they come from, matters, and we try to respect that. And well, that's the first and foremost thing that we do. So yeah.
I can I go next? Is that
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to jump off of that because I think at Lyric we also have a little bit of the same approach, particularly in the internships that I work in. What you were saying that in your organization that everyone's history and background matters, and that's exactly what the type of environment we try to create in the internships at Lyric, and celebrating everyone's unique identities, right? Because I think violence comes. My boss was telling me that violence comes from like certain people, certain identities being valued above others, right? So in heterosexual relationships, a lot of the times it's like the male that's the abuser, right, or the batterer, because that person historically has more power, and historically men are, well, whatever, I won't get into all that. But yeah, so as long as one group is valued more than another, there will be violence, right? So here at Lyric, we're trying to say, hey, queer and trans people matter. Queer and trans people are valued, and so we try to we do a lot of community building, right, to make sure that people are supported, to make sure that the interns are all have a wide support system, because that's another thing that plays into violence is abusers will often try to isolate their partners, right? Isolate them from friends and family so that they can't get out of that relationship, right? And they'll try to break down their self-esteem. And so at Lyric, in the internships, focusing on community building, self-love, and also modeling healthy relationships for each other, I think has a huge impact on in our community as to preventing violence.
Awesome. Okay. So for me, I work at the Idaho Coalition Against Sexual and Domestic Violence, and as a youth leader and organizer there, an activist, the way we've been trying to integrate youth involvement and engagement and also prevention work has been through our yearly campaigns. And these campaigns, the youth team, we build them, we create them, so it's like the poster work, all that policy creation, things that help youth in Idaho specifically, and then anyone who wants that materials or posters outside of Idaho, which happens to be like other states or like across the sea and like India and England, that happens a lot. So we at Idaho Coalition have been really trying to hit on the fact that we should be looking straight at prevention work. And I think the problem with the movement to end violence right now is it's all responsive, and a lot of the materials we see are for young people who've already been through those traumatic moments in their lives, and they're trying to find strength to move on with that. And I think there's a problem in that because we're creating a culture that says that we cannot address the problem head on. We have to address it afterwards because it's so taboo. So at the coalition, we've been really trying to hit that with prevention. So that's re-educating through our materials. We're trying to create prevention plans at the school level, where we can say that we will address sexual harassment and assault in the school before it actually happens, which I think is really important, especially in a place like Idaho, and where we have so much pushback on anything that is connected to the word sexual whatsoever. So that's been a hurdle we're trying to get over, and the coalition has gone through many years of trying to switch over to the idea that we need youth in our movement, and we do address that the people who are abused the most, like in the future, are those who were abused when they were in high school or middle school. So it's really addressing that youth have to come first, if that makes sense.
So I know you all, thank you so much. I know you all thought of sort of questions that you might want to ask each other. I think what's really cool is that the three of you work not only in different places across the country and on slightly different issues, but in really different communities. And I know you all put some thought into some things that you might want to ask each other. So I'll just let you all jump in on those.
Cool.
Okay.
Does anybody mind if I ask the first question?
Oh no, go ahead.
Cool?
Go ahead.
Okay, so this question is more broad-based, and it's for both of you, because I have specific questions for each one of you, but I'll get that later. But my question for both of you,
Oh no, go
I guess
ahead.
collectively, is what do you see in the future for youth activism? Like, what's like on the path we're moving right now with seeing really influential youth coming out of activism? What do you see in the future for us? Does it seem bright to you, or do you still think we need to make some kind of change now in order to create that bright future that we want to see?
I think that my personal views, I think that it's because right now, with youth activism, we have all these sort of systems that are not taking us seriously, that are not, looking at us as like actual agents of change or whatever. And I think that like in the future, in the near future, I definitely see there's a shift, rather from um, sort of looking from sort of all these systems full of adults that are like, oh, youth activists, rather than just taking sort of that youth out of it and just simply being activists. Because I think that right now, youth activism is really important. I just think that sort of having that word in front of it, when a lot of adults hear that, they're just like, oh, look, they're youth activists, look at them, they're trying to create change in the future, and I think that just simply just calling it activists, because I feel that everybody's, no matter how old or how young you are, if you want to change in your community, you can definitely do that. You can definitely try, and do whatever you have to sort of like create that change. And I think that putting just the word youth in front of it makes it sort of this thing where it's like, oh, it's just not that serious, I think. And I think that in the future, I can definitely see change happening. So yeah.
I think for me, what I hope to see in the future of just activism in general, I think is more intergenerational stuff. So I want to see young people working with elderly people and middle-aged people and like all ages, really, to work towards a common cause. Yeah, and I think a lot of the times youth voices are just left out of the conversation. And so I'd just love to see a lot more organizations being youth driven and youth led. Yeah, because I think sometimes it's like easy for organizations to tokenize us, right? To be like, to be like, oh, look, we have these two youth leaders, but actually they really don't do anything. And yeah. So I want to see like adults really investing in us and really like offering us resources so that we can go and create change on our own, right? Or with their help, because they do have resources that we need. But let us be more a part of the conversation and let us lead more, right? That's what I really hope to see.
I totally agree with you guys. It needs to be I feel like in order for youth activism to work at the organizational level, because youth activism is happening everywhere, even if they're not with a specific organization, I feel like it's really creating that collaboration part. And it's not just like, oh, this group of people are going to tell us like the trends of what these people are doing right now. We need your help to tell us how to address them. It's more of like, okay, I have things that you know that you value that I can help you with, and you the same, and so we can both use it at the same time to create that change. So I think is extremely important. But yeah, I feel like right now people are forgetting, like in the past people have forgotten how much youth have been involved in moves because of the fact that they put the word youth in front of it. I think it's not as important. So I feel like they had taken that almost that away from us because they thought, because it was so much bigger than we were, they took that label away from us of saying that we did do this. But now, because of social media, I feel like you can trace the beginning of a movement back to a youth. And so you can see that they themselves, like, there's proof now. And people are like, well, you can't say that. Like, I have proof here that this is how it started, which I think is really cool. So I feel like with the continuation progress of social media, you'll see more and more and more youth being taken to the front as being leaders and trying to make change, which I think is beautiful. But yeah.
Definitely. And I also I have a question for the group.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, sort of as the title that sort of we've that many people have bestowed upon us, or sometimes we do it on ourselves, is that, like, this, we're sort of these agents of change. So there's this whole, like, pressure that, hey, you have to be sort of like right all the time, or like you have to be perfect all the time. You have to speak, you have to you know, say the right thing all the time, 24/7. You have to sort of like look, and I think that, like, sometimes people forget that, as humans, we all do make mistakes, and we all, we can be wrong sometimes, and I think that, sometimes we can, the activists can also tend to forget that too, and I think that, like, I just want to, ask, like, how do you guys, deal with that? How do you guys deal with your mistakes? And I know if you guys have ever made any, and how do you, because sometimes I do believe that, the work that we do, we can sometimes be wrong.
Yeah, of course.
And there's really, like, many ways of dealing about it. How do you personally deal with that, with those kind of problems?
Yeah. Jed, are you okay with me going, or do you want to go?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so for me specifically, I guess, it's just, I feel like in our community, in our society, we have this type of culture where we punish people for making mistakes, and we don't take mistakes as being learning experiences. Like, that's where we learn most of the things we know in this world, is from making a mistake and then having those conversations. So I feel like even though I mean, ideally, I don't want to make mistakes in my life. I feel like I have to make sure that in my mind, I don't take those as a negative thing, but as a time for me to expand my capacity of what I know about the world. Because I don't know everything. Shouldn't be expected to know everything. So it's nice. It's a concept that I think that is really for learning and growing in yourself. And so, and even like on the organizational level, like for the Idaho Coalition, they've made many mistakes with having youth engagement and work within the system, with the way they set it up, with the way they tokenized young individuals. And so I think it's just learning and, like, looking back and seeing what we could have done better, or what you as an individual could have done better. I mean, I guess that's the simplest way I can think about it.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely does make sense, and I think that's a great way of approaching it. Yeah, how about you, Jed?
Yeah, so I like what Fatima was saying about mistakes being a learning experience, right? Because I think that's really true. And yeah, and so when I make mistakes, and when people call me out on it, or when I notice that I've said something wrong or done something wrong, I'm a very reactionary person just by nature, so I try to just take a minute and sit with what people are telling me, right? And to really take in that feedback, and to not take it personally, and to keep an open mind, and to, again, back to my definition of what activism is constantly challenging your own thoughts, your own actions, your own prejudices, right? So yeah, when I get called out on my mistakes, I think I definitely just like to take a second and really chew on what people are telling me, and to try to implement the feedback they're giving me into doing better next time. But I just try not to take it personally, because like Fatima was saying, mistakes are growing opportunities.
Yeah. And I think that for me, like, personally, the way that I handle mistake is I sort of take this thing that that I learned from ICA, the organization that I work at, and it's basically like the whole point about activism work is education and educating people, and it's not we're not really there, and we know that we know that people come from many backgrounds and many and many diverse backgrounds, and I think as activists we are very passionate about the work that we do, and we are very passionate about everything that we approach everything with passion, and we approach everything with sort of this forces like, hey, like we want you to sort of jump on our wagon and think about but I think I think many misconceptions about activists is that hey, they believe life should be one way, and so that should be the right way, and we were going to try to knock down everybody who don't believe in the same sort of in the same life way, in the same way that we believe in. But I think that's the wrong thing. I think that at ICA we definitely recognize that everyone comes from a diverse background, and everyone has different opinions, and we sort of like what Jed was saying, not only challenge our own way of learning, but also we challenge the way of other. We sort of like we let people speak their opinion, and we question that. If we're not right, we'll say we question that. And sometimes and I am wrong. I am wrong every single day. I am wrong. I'm wrong every single day. Like just today during my global affairs class, we were talking about the whole Sam Smith awards thing, winning the Oscars last night, and then him saying, I'm the first gay person to win an Oscar, and him just, and then my only thing with that was that, I can get on about this, but I was just, talking about how like how he's just now decided to speak about the outspoken, talk about the LGBT community when has been issues, and he's been out for like how he's been famous for like 3 years now. And then what my teacher told me in face of that is that that like sort of where I'm focusing he challenged me to think about how I'm focusing my view, my focusing sort of my attention or my all of this on the wrong person. We're not I should be attacking the people that are actually bringing down LGBT people, not the and I think, and for me that really got me thinking about sort of the way I was going about this. We are, and I think with a lot of the time it's I'm not like oh you're wrong. Even if a lot of things that people tend to do when they're wrong is that they still try to fight the issue when they know they're wrong, just so that they don't seem like just so that they don't seem that they're wrong, or they don't seem that they're like to like I don't know. But I feel that like accepting that you're wrong, because also take it as when you're in school. Jed is gone. I feel that like when you're in school, you learn, you make mistakes, and that's how you learn. You learn, you learn by doing and doing and doing. And I think that that's sort of the take that I get from being an activist too, is that like I'm never right, like all the time. I guess I'm never right all the time, but also I don't carry myself as being right. I carry myself the way that I carry my work is that I'm here to learn from another person, excuse me, and they're here to learn from me too. So whatever I can take from them and bring it back to my work, that's sort of my learning opportunity.
Cool. And I love that, Jacques. I think what that reminds me of a lot is the whole idea about being an ally. Because sometimes like being an ally is spoken about like it's this thing like you just wake up one morning and like you are one, and that's like not how it works. Like it's you would choose to be one in every day, every minute of your life. And inherently what being an ally means to communities that are not yours, right? Whatever community that is it really means it's about listening and learning. And if you're listening and learning and being intentional about that, you're going to make mistakes, and you have to be willing to learn from them and like just be like, okay, awesome, I messed up and I'm going to do better next time. And I think having the bravery to speak even though you might make a mistake, and to make that mistake maybe in front of other people and to learn from it instead of shutting down from it, that's it. Like having the bravery to do that is so important, and that's what makes a good ally and a good activist.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Can I ask another question? Oh, sorry. Is it okay?
Oh no, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, is it okay if I ask you a question specifically?
Yeah, me?
Okay. Yeah, because Jed's not here right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So my question was, I know that ICA does some social theater
Mhm.
to educate and to bring awareness to your community. So I was just
Mhm.
wondering along the years, what other methods have you learned that have worked for you to address those issues in your community and have people become allies or become activists in their community?
Okay. Would you mind repeating the question one more time,
Yeah.
please? Yeah.
So, I know, like, I'll try to break it down a little more, but I know
Mhm.
there's like some organizations that have stuck to doing like traditional, like
Mhm.
posters on the wall, like, oh, violence is bad, no, 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 no.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, like my question is like, how has ICA like through like, because I know you do social theater, like how
Mhm.
has ICA like try to find other methods to bringing education awareness to their community or to your community specifically,
Mhm.
if that helps?
Okay. And I think, well, and I at ICA there's sort of the
Mm-hmm.
two divisions, I guess, and
Yeah.
I'm part of the youth leader, so I'm not technically affiliated
Uh-huh.
with the theater part and the performance
Yeah.
part. But
Mhm.
from my understanding, I think that like with sort of the plays or stuff that we put on, it's sort of very audience driven too. It's like we
That's
have sort
cool.
of the basics of like what we're going to do and all of that, but at the
Yeah.
same time, it's like we're inviting the audience to sort of participate in this theater that we're doing, participate, and so that they also feel that they're activists. And it's never, because I think that theater, what can happen is theater is that like with theater is that like theater can be sort of this thing where you're separating where the audience feels separated um from the performance. And I think that's
Mhm.
not sort of, as activists, like that's not the goal.
Mhm.
That's not the
Exactly.
goal. We want to connect with our audience. So I think that in at with and I think that a lot of time with the work that we do at ICA is that like we're trying to get the our audience to connect with us the most, and we do that by we have a guide list of sort of the topics that we want to talk about, and is we invite the audience to sort of talk about to come into that conversation and
Yeah.
tell us when they think that we're wrong, tell us when what their opinions are, so that we can sort of
Mhm.
help influence that in some way and get them thinking. And it's not like
Yeah.
and I think that with many people a lot of the time is that we never come, like I don't usually come with I don't usually just come and do sort of like, I don't approach my work in the community as oh, I'm coming here just so that I can create change. I come here to influence something. That's my
Mhm.
goal. And if I can get you thinking about what your actions and what your views and what of that, and that maybe in the future that can change. Maybe you can go off
Yeah.
and tell that to someone. And I think that's the point with like, especially with teaching too at school, it's never the time. I mean, especially the curriculum at my school is that it's never the time. It's never, the teachers are not going to tell you the right answers. The teacher not going to tell you, this is a right way to do this thing. They're going to tell you this is a way to do this thing, but we want you
Mhm.
to sort of like find your own way of doing it, if the best way that works for you. And I think that's sort of the way that we approach our work and everything.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Welcome back, Jed.
Yeah.
Uh,
Sorry, I
wait.
don't know what happened.
No, man, we have to learn to
Yeah.
cruise with the technical difficulties, and
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
thankful to you all for doing that.
I'm
Cool.
my school is actually about to close, so I have to actually go and head home.
Okay.
But I will, when I get home, I will. My train is underground, so unfortunately, I can't log on my phone while I'm on the train. But when I get home,
Mhm.
I'll still, I'll log back on and see if the conversation is still going, and I'll join. Okay.
Okay.
I'm so
Cool. Bye,
sorry. Yeah.
Jacques.
Thank you, Jacques.
Bye.
Thanks for being here.
Bye.
Thank you for having me. This was so exciting, and thank you. Yes. Okay. Bye. Talk to you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Cool.
Well, awesome. I think we just have a couple more minutes here before we
Okay.
probably want to wrap it up, and I'm wondering
Uh-huh.
if anyone has maybe a last question they want to throw out there.
Uh, Jed, do you have a question? If not, I can ask
Um,
if you want to.
yeah, I have uh sorry, I hella
No, you're
lost track of my
fine.
questions. Oh
No, you're
yeah,
cool.
yeah, I was wondering like who are your
Oh yeah.
role models for like healthy relationships,
Yeah.
and what do those relationships look like?
Yeah, okay. I was actually thinking about this at school today. When I saw your email about that. It took me aback for a second because I was like, I don't know, like and that's sad, right? Like I couldn't even. It took me like at least 5 minutes to actually like figure out like a good answer, and I feel like that's a problem in itself to think that we as youth have no actual like, and I mean besides family members or someone close to us, we have no like examples of the outside world that is healthy or has healthy relationships because social media is scattered with these over dramatic relationships that are supposed to be interesting, that are supposed to be eye catching to young people. But I guess after I thought about it for a while, for me, I like to say the First Lady and Mr. President. I actually really like their relationship. I think it's interesting. I mean, think about it. I mean, Michelle Obama is like one of the most successful first ladies. Like she has like her undergraduate degree at an Ivy League school, and she like went to law school. Like she's an educated woman, and her husband like supports her fully, and she supports her husband fully, and they have a really good, I think, mutual relationship on and respecting each other. I think that's really like I think it's inspiring and helpful for young people, like especially the fact that they are POC, and so it's nice for people who identify as POC being able to look up to somebody who has been that successful, and a couple that can be represented in like within them if they identify that way, which I think is really cool. So for me, it would be the president and Michelle Obama.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool that you found someone like a real life example, or outside of your, like
my family circle,
because because when I was thinking of that question, I was also thinking like, I wouldn't, there's no one in the media that I would be like, you're a role model to me, but that's really awesome that you were able to point out like Michelle Obama and Barack Obama, because they are an amazing couple.
And I think that's such a good point around like the media that we're being presented with and the examples that we're being shown, and how there really is like a dearth of examples of healthy relationships and like good behavior happening in pop culture. Like if you think about the songs that we listen to, like the TV shows that are popular, not only a lack of healthy relationships, but a lack of, like you said, people of color, a lack of people with different experiences being shown up there. And so I think it just is a really good call out around, what is the media that we're being fed and what are the examples that we're being shown.
Yeah, and also like what are the impacts of those examples, right?
Yeah, like a lot of those like POC examples of relationships we see on TV are like highly exaggerated. It's like high drama, violent, like, oh, of course that would happen kind of thing, like we need to help you sort of thing. It's like nothing, like we rarely see anything positive until like now. Like we are seeing like I feel like there is starting to become like a little shift in the media and like trying to portray that, which I'm really happy about. I just hope it goes a little faster. I think we all do though.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's such like an underrepresentation of like healthy relationships in the media, particularly for like people of color, just because there's so little representation of people of color in the media in general.
Exactly. So it's if POC are gonna be in the media whatsoever, it's going to be as their stereotype, and that stereotype usually comes from like a place of like violence or fear or some kind.
Right. Yeah, and even like violence prevention campaigns and stuff. A lot of the times, the relationships, the abuser is a person of color. Yeah.
So it just perpetuates that presence or that stereotype even more for people, because we know subliminally like what that does to us. Because then like if I see a poster that has a POC being an abuser and I see a POC in a relationship with someone, I'm gonna be like, oh, are you careful? Do you need to tell me something? Is like everything okay? And then you already start assuming things about people, which is messed up in itself, and it creates even more problems in our culture.
Right.
Yeah. Well, before we sign off, I want to ask each of you to offer up maybe one piece of advice. I mean, I feel like both of you are, and Jacques too, sorry, he had to leave, but you're all sort of really good examples of people that have really devoted themselves to activism in a lot of ways, and there are a lot of folks out there who maybe want to get started but don't know how, or feel like they live in a community where like resources or moments to shine or moments to take action are not really available to them. And I was hoping that maybe each of you could offer up just like one or a couple of pieces of advice that you would offer maybe your younger self or someone who wanted to sort of jump in and take action.
Yeah, of course. For me specifically, I think it was extremely important to me. Like, I've always been a loud person, and that's just how it's been. But I noticed there was a point in middle school where I was noticing these injustices happening, and maybe it was just because I was like one out of hundreds and hundreds of kids at my school who was POC, and so I think that those kind of injustices were becoming very apparent to me at a very young age. But I noticed at that time that I was supposed to be quiet about some things because of like I didn't want to bring that conflict. And so I feel like a lot of the time young people don't speak up anymore like directly because they're afraid of that conflict, or not even conflict in general, or just afraid of what the consequences of what might happen. So I feel like advice to that is try to find or create for yourself a space where you can be honest with yourself and you can say those things. So if you don't feel like you're ready to say that in front of a whole or confront a whole group of people about things that are happening, create a space where you can invite those who are already feeling that they're on the pathway for social justice to come into that space. So then you're not going into a hostile environment already and then stirring things up where it could you like put yourself in danger. So trying to like be like, hey, if anybody wants to talk about, like, just having a conversation, if anybody wants to talk about blah 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 or whatever, they can come to this classroom or they could come after school to the park and we can just chill and we can just share. Like, and there's no pressure to share anything. It's just to enjoy each other's company and space and knowing that it is safe. That's what hopefully that helps somebody.
Yeah, that was definitely like one of the pieces of advice that I was gonna share, right? Is surrounding yourself with other people, other young activists or other people that are also passionate about similar issues to you. And really, like creating a physical space where you can go and have those safe conversations, like you were saying, like maybe a classroom or a park by your school or something. I think that's really important. And along with that, I think educating yourself on issues, right? You might be stuck in the middle of nowhere, so but hope maybe you have the internet at school or something, or books or a library, and just educate yourself. And again, challenge your own views. And be open-minded, right? Be willing to listen to people that are different from you.
Definitely,
I love it. I feel like I learn so much every time I talk to you both. I feel like I'm just sitting in the background like, this is amazing. But I think that's all we have time for, so I want to go ahead and wrap it up. But I want to say a huge, huge thank you to both of you and to Jacques for taking the time to join us. This has been such a cool conversation. I find you both totally inspirational. I think you're incredible people, and I feel very, very lucky that I met you at the summit and that I get to keep hanging out with you and doing cool stuff like this. So thank you both very much. And to Jacques too. Hopefully he's listening somewhere. And we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.